Are we ready? That. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sacramento. Meeting is called to order. I'm Victor Law, the Vice President, acting on behalf of the President who is absent today. And can I have a roll call, please, starting on my left?
Greg Lippy, public member.
Albert Wong, professional member.
Ricardo Sanchez, public member.
Alan Shad, professional member.
Ryan Brooks, public member.
Debbie Veal, professional member.
And Victor Law, professional member. Before we proceed, I think we need some clarifications from our attorney, Ms. Laura Freeman. Laura?
Yes, good morning, everyone. This meeting was originally noticed in compliance with the Open Meeting Act, and 10 days prior, a notice issued about what would be on the agenda. Late last week, we thought we had lost a quorum. And so, in order to avoid the public having to participate or to come when we didn't believe that the board itself would be taking action, a notice was issued to the public to let them know that we wouldn't be dealing with certain issues, but that the board itself would act pursuant to 4309 of the Business and Professions Code, that the board would be acting as a committee of the board in order to specifically just to deal with the petitions for early termination or reduction of penalty. And this morning we were able to have a quorum here at the board, and so that obviously given that we put out the notice saying it was only going to be a committee of the board, and now you have a quorum of the board. I did some research this morning and I looked at the government code provisions as well as a couple attorney general opinions, and I would like to give you advice that I think it is in compliance with the Open Meeting Act that you proceed with as a full board with the quorum, and that all members can participate. And the reasons for that basically harken back to sort of the principles underlying the Open Meeting Act, which are that the actions that the board takes must be done in public. In this case, the public was noticed of the reason that the items that you were going to be dealing with were going to be limited because you were a committee. And that it was because you specifically lost a quorum. The items that you're still going to be dealing with in public are going to be the very same items, and you'll be making the board members. The discussion will be still public, and the decisions that you'll be making would have been in closed session or mail balloted votes. So that portion is not changing. And I also believe that allowing the full board to participate is also consistent with the principles of having board members sit here. So based on that, my advice to the board is that it is perfectly legal and lawful for the board to continue, but it's the board's meeting, so I wanted to present that in case anybody had any questions.
Any questions from the public? And thank you, Laura, for the clarification. And I also like to welcome our new attorney, Kelsey. Would you like to introduce yourself? Thank you and welcome. And presiding on the petitions today is our Judge Honorary Heather Rowan. Would you like to proceed?
Good morning. We're going to start with Mr. Solakis.
Hey, good morning. Can I have a quick point of privilege before we start? I would like to open our meeting in memory of Mayor Ed Lee, San Francisco Mayor Ed Lee, who passed away this morning at 1:11 at the age of 65. Mayor Ed Lee was a great friend of mine. He actually worked for me at City Hall for many years, and we've continued on a long relationship. He's survived by his wife and his 2 kids, so I'd like to open and close the meeting in his memory if the president so chooses.
Sure, that's okay, Ryan.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Solakis.
And I'm I'm sorry to bring this up, but you also have your item number 2 on the agenda is actually public comment. Do you want to take that now, or would you like to take that out of order and do it after the petition hearings?
Can we do that?
You may take it out of order, but I just would recommend you give notice to the public that you'll do it then.
Why don't you do it now, just in case anybody, I don't think there's anybody here, but just in case anybody wants to.
Okay, we could. Why don't we first ask for the public, is there any public comments on items not on the agenda? Seeing none, then we could proceed on the petitions. Thank you. Okay, Joanna.
Thank you. Before we go on the record, I just want to let you know my experience of being in this room before is that you need to make sure that you're kind of close to the microphone when you're giving your statements. I want to make sure the board can hear everything that you have to say. Let's go on the record. We are on the record before the Board of Pharmacy to review the petition for early termination of probation of Frank Solakis, OAH number 2017-120081. My name is Heather Rowan. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings. I have been assigned to preside over this matter. Prior to going on the record today, we established that there is a quorum of the Board of Pharmacy this morning. May I take the appearance of counsel, starting with the Attorney General, please?
Yes, good morning, Your Honor. Christina Jarvis, Deputy Attorney General.
Thank you. And on behalf of Mr. Solakis?
Mr. Solakis. Sorry. Thank you, Your Honor. Lucy McAllister appearing on behalf of Mr. Solakis.
Could you spell your name for me? I'm sorry.
Sure. M-C-A-L-L-I-S-T-E-R.
And your first name was?
L-U-C-Y.
Okay, I misheard you. Thank you. Okay, prior to going on the record this morning, we discussed the procedure of how we'll proceed today. We're going to start with a statement by Ms. Jarvis whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm appearing here on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Government Code Section 11522 and Business and Professions Code Section 4309. My role is intended to protect the public interest by ensuring that the board has adequate information from which to make a decision on this petition. Petitioner first became licensed in 1997. He started his own pharmacy in 2004. The inspection that uncovered the violations of laws and regulations governing pharmacy was in 2011. And by stipulated settlement and order, effective July 9th, 2014, petitioner's pharmacist license was placed on probation for 5 years, and his pharmacy license was revoked. A brief overview of the reasons for discipline without restating the entire accusation is that petitioner, as the owner and pharmacist in charge, allowed non-pharmacists to sign for drug deliveries, possess keys to the pharmacy, failed to report to cures, failed to complete required self-assessments and the biennial inventory, failed to segregate Schedule II records, and failed to adequately secure the pharmacy, leading to over 500,000 pills lost or theft, along with 1,115 pints of promethazine with codeine. After the pharmacy shut down, 53 boxes of prescription and ordering or dispensing records were found in the vacated building. There are 9 causes for discipline in the accusation against petitioner. However, as of today, petitioner has been compliant with probation. He has paid 100% of the $14,500 in cost recovery ordered. He is compliant with his community service hours every year, and he completed the ethics course that was ordered in 2015. Petitioner has also submitted 136 hours of continuing education certificates from January of 2014 through April of 2017. Petitioner also provided 6 letters of recommendation, 3 of which were able to be verified, 2 were not verified, and 1 was from his wife. Since petitioner is represented, I will turn matters over to him and his attorney to address the board and present their petition packet once the exhibits are entered. So at this time, I would like to enter the petition packet and other exhibits into evidence. Your Honor, may I approach?
Thank you. Yes.
The document that I have pre-marked as Exhibit 1 is the memorandum to the board in regards to this petition and petition packet, and I would like that to be admitted.
Do you have any objections to Exhibit 1?
No objection.
Exhibit 1 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Exhibit 2 is the petition for early termination submitted by the petitioner with the attachments, including the CE certificates, along with the letters of recommendation, and I ask that the entire petition be admitted as Exhibit 2.
Objections?
No objection.
Your Honor, if I may, I noticed that the copy that I have has a date of birth on it. If I could suggest that perhaps we redact that information or any other personal information that might be in the petition packet before it's entered.
Okay, is there anything else besides that first page that you would suggest being redacted?
No, I don't believe so. There is a cell phone number, I think.
Okay. Exhibit 2 is admitted subject to redaction. I believe that my copy becomes the public record, so I will keep that in mind as I read through it.
Thank you, Your Honor. And then Exhibit 3 is the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, including the underlying accusation in case number 4248, which placed this petitioner on probation, and I ask that that also be admitted.
Objections to Exhibit 3.
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 3 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this point, it is now petitioner's opportunity to address the board.
Thank you. Ms. McAllister.
Yes, Your Honor, and board. Mr. Salakis comes to you today asking for early termination based on his not only compliance with all the probationary conditions, but the way in which he has currently excelled in his acts as a pharmacist. We would like to indicate that the circumstances that brought Mr. Salakis originally before the board with the accusation were extenuating in and of themselves, and that it was a condition of illness that his wife suffered from, and in addition there were 2 flooding circumstances that caused him to collide in his decisions about whether or not he should take care of his wife or take care of his pharmacy. Mr. Salakis specifically chose not to fight the revocation of his pharmacy license and now comes before the board with on probation as a pharmacist. He understands that he excels individually with individuals as a pharmacist, yet as a businessman he did not. So he has laid to rest that part of his professional career and moves now forward as a pharmacist. If the board were to review all of his conditions of probation as they are outlined in our mitigation packet, you will see that he has completely complied. But in addition with his compliance, he has gone above and beyond in terms of his continuing education. And in addition to that, his letters of recommendation speak very highly of his precision and his attention to detail, and also the way in which he works with and treats customers and patients. What brings us primarily to the board at this time is the condition of probation that causes Mr. Salakis to really be in a very difficult position. Clearly, as a family man, being with his family and providing for his family is, of course, incredibly important to him. In order to be able to feel compassion for the public, he also has to demonstrate that at home as well. One of the difficulties in working as a pharmacist is the problem of the actual practicality of work. And the practicality in the Bay Area is the reality that many, many, many pharmacies only employ one pharmacist at a time. And as a result of only employing one pharmacist at a time, condition 12, the condition of the requirement of 50% supervision, presents a tremendous barrier to employment. As a result, not wanting to be unemployed, obviously in order to maintain his status as probation, Mr. Salakis on a daily basis looked for a job and was continuously rejected 3 years ago because of the fact that, one, he was on probation, but two, the pharmacies simply could not provide him with supervision. In order to work and now to be able to come before the board and indicate that he has, as a condition of probation, been employed for the last 3 years, he now works 3.5 hours away from his family. He travels there every week. He lives there. He stays away from his wife and his 4 children, and he supports 2 households, his own and theirs. And this is significant because he believes that it's his responsibility to take care of his family. He respects his children's desire and need to stay in a continuous and contiguous environment where they currently live. And he comes to the board now stating that he has done his best. He has been committed. He has done everything in his power to become the best pharmacist he could become. And if the board would allow him to terminate probation at this time, it is more likely, highly likely, that he would be able to return to the Bay Area and get a job where he could be the stellar family man and father that he has become as a pharmacist. And at this time, I'd like to turn my presentation over to Mr. Salakis so he can personally tell you.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, but I'm going to swear you in before you begin. Will you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm, under penalty of perjury, the testimony you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Now go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Frank Solakis, and I want to first say I really want to thank the board for allowing me to come here today and present my case to you. I really do appreciate that. I'm here today to ask you, the Board of Pharmacy, to terminate my probation early and to fully restore my pharmacy license. I have been on probation for nearly 3.5 years, and I know that I am ready to be trusted again. I have worked very hard not only to improve myself professionally, but also mentally and spiritually. I am a different person now than I was 5 years ago. Please give me the opportunity to show you that I have changed and improved myself for the better. For example, as part of the probation requirements, I rehabilitated myself. For one, I read over 200 articles from various pharmacy magazines, starting from 2014. Pharmacist Letter, Medical Letter, and the Pharmacy Times. I have educated myself to be a more complete and well-rounded pharmacist by choosing different topics in the magazines to be more familiar with the serving the community and the patients better. Because people come from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different educational backgrounds. So I wanted to commit myself to read different types of articles to be a more well-rounded pharmacist. Such topics included ethics, women's and men's health, HIPAA regulations, drug diversion, combating methamphetamine use, managed care focus, preventing drug errors, federal drug laws, and managing and leadership skills, amongst many other topics. I also kept current with the current pharmacy laws in California by reading the script that the Board of Pharmacy publishes every few months. I volunteered as part of my condition of probation at a blood bank on the peninsula, where I helped donors with the process of giving and blood and plasma. And when I first went there, I really had no idea what this was really about. But when I actually saw and witnessed people, strangers, giving of themselves their blood and donating their blood to help strangers live, it really had a very impactful thing on me. It really changed the way I looked into myself and inspired me to reevaluate my entire life. It made me want to change myself for the better. and maybe want to make a difference and try to help people more than I did as a pharmacist. Because a pharmacist, you can only help people so much. I wanted to take the time and effort to help people in another way, aside from pharmacy. And by helping people, I found out that it not only helped myself, but it healed me. It healed me to become a better person overall. I decided to give back and take a more active role in helping people and become more involved in my community. I was never a church goer. I did go to church every so often, but I was never a church goer. But I decided to give more to my church because my church is the Greek Orthodox Church in Belmont, and they're known to help people in the community. So I decided to become an usher where I can help with the church services and other religious ceremonies. There's also something called the parish council, which is involved in managing the church affairs and finances. I really wasn't part of the parish council because unfortunately you have to go to meetings every week, and because I live almost 4 hours away working, it's very hard for me to come down for the meetings, so I was more like an adjunct committee member. I also participated in something called the Outreach and Family Share programs of the church. And these are programs where people can give food, money, and clothing to the needy. One Sunday a month, we take all of these, the food, the clothing, and the money, and we go down to Samaritan House in San Mateo, where they disperse all of the foods and whatnot to needy families in the Bay Area. I'm also involved in something called the Church's Benevolence Committee. Now, this is a committee that's very, that really helps people out who need financial aid, basically money. For people who cannot pay their bills, who are behind in their mortgage, it gives them money. I was one of the people they helped, and it really helped me a lot. And because they helped me, I wanted to give back more. So whenever I have the free time to do so, I try to volunteer my time and services on the Benevolence Committee. And also, and lastly, with the church, I also help out at my daughter's Sunday school when I can. I'm an assistant teacher there. If the teacher is sick or she needs some extra help, she calls on me and I help her out whenever I can. One other thing I try to do is an on-call thing for my children's elementary school. I'm an on-call yard duty volunteer, which means if the regular yard duty is sick or they're absent, they give me a call to come in and help out supervising kids during recess and lunch. I'm more like a mentor to these kids because I help them out when organizing games, kickball, softball, basketball. I help them when they injure themselves, a scrape, a fight, a fall. In a sense, I'm there like a pseudo big brother to them. If they need some advice from me or some help, they come to me. It's a way of giving back to these kids because right now is the best time to mold children at this age, to mold them into proper young adults. If you don't do it now when they're young, you'll never reach these kids. So I try to commit myself, if I can, to helping these kids out whenever I'm able to. Another thing I did during my time was I did a 2-day ethics course by the Board of Pharmacy in Sacramento, Professional Boundaries. And when I did take that course, this course really made a very significant impact on my life and the way that I practice pharmacy today. The course taught me to that without adhering to a code of principles or ethics, either both professionally or personally, one cannot successfully achieve their goals in life, whatever their goals might be. You cannot achieve without having some sort of principles and guidelines to guide you. In order to be a successful pharmacist, I found you must do 2 things. 1, follow the rules and policies set forth by the pharmacy you're working at. And number 2, adhere to a code of professional ethics and principles to help guide a pharmacist with your relationships between patients, medical professionals, and society. You must have those 2 things in order to be a successful pharmacist. I didn't have those 2 things before. I was basically lost all those years. But after the ethics course, it really changed my life for the better. I know what I must do and what I have to do to be a professional and a good pharmacist. I successfully followed these ethical principles in my past and current workplaces, both as an inpatient pharmacist at Feather River Pharmacy and now as an outpatient pharmacist at Feather River Outpatient Pharmacy. Because of these principles, I have never deviated or wavered from any of my duties and responsibilities as a pharmacist, and I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud that I've changed my way, and I've changed myself for the better. I follow the company's policies and procedures, as well as following the Board of Pharmacy's rules and regulations together with federal law. As a result of these, I've received nothing but good and positive performance evaluations from my pharmacy manager and my director in both my inpatient and outpatient jobs. Now, on a more personal note, I want the board to know that this probation has been very difficult for me and my family personally. We have lost everything. I lost my house, I lost my business, and my life savings, which ultimately led us to claim bankruptcy in order for us to survive. And we've struggled to keep our heads above water ever since. But it's getting worse. It's not getting better. So allowing me to get off probation early will help me get back on my feet and help provide for my family. In conclusion, I would just like to say that I love being a pharmacist. This is not a job for me, but this is also my passion. I truly enjoy helping people and want to make a difference in their lives. And I'm really truly sorry and remorseful and take full responsibility for my poor actions and decisions in the past. But I have changed. I feel that my best years are ahead of me and that I've learned from my past mistakes. And I've become a more complete, a more responsible, and a well-rounded pharmacist and person. So again, I respectfully ask the board to please terminate my probation because I do live 3.5 hours away from my family. I only see them on the weekends. I have to pay rent of $700 a month to live up there, plus my mortgage. And in the Bay Area, it is extremely difficult to find a job because in the Bay Area, 2 pharmacists do not work together at the same time. They only employ 1 pharmacist at a time. Where I'm working now up in Feather River, it's an outpatient medical clinic. So there are a lot of pharmacists who work together. So I basically am compliant with term 12 of the condition where I have the 50% supervision. That's not a problem for me up here. But I do want to go to the Bay Area, go back to my family, but in order to do so, I please need to have this taken away from me so I can find a job if I can. But please, I'm sorry, I'm rambling on. I apologize. I'd just like to say, I promise to prove to you and to my patients that I'm ready to be trusted again. Please believe in me that I've changed and I'm ready to be taken off probation. God bless and thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McAllister, did you have any other evidence to submit?
Everything has been submitted, Your Honor, through our packet.
Thank you. Ms. Jarvis.
Yes, Your Honor. Just a few questions. Mr. Salakis, if you were taken off probation, would you want to be a pharmacist in charge again?
No.
Would you want to own your own pharmacy again?
No.
Why, if you're currently maintaining 2 households on a single salary, right, because your wife doesn't work? What? That's a yes.
That's correct. We have 4 kids, so it's hard for her to work with 4 kids.
So why not move your family to where your work is, particularly if you lost your house?
Because my family has roots in the Bay Area. I have family now who live in the Bay Area, and I didn't really want to bring this up now, but recently 2 of my children, my oldest and my youngest daughter, have recently been diagnosed with a nerve condition called ataxia, Friedreich's ataxia, and their doctors are in the Bay Area at Stanford. So there is no ataxia specialist living up in Chico area. The only specialists that I have, the neurology specialists, are either UCSF or San Francisco. Or Stanford. So I have to keep them in the Bay Area for the time being until a cure, hopefully within the next 5 years or so, comes out, God willing, to treat them. But right now they must be in the Bay Area because they do receive treatment there and physical therapy there.
What if the board were simply to remove condition 12, the supervision requirement? Would that be sufficient for you to get a job?
No, because I have tried to ask different pharmacies, and I've gone over this when I apply for jobs at pharmacies, and they've told me that unless the probation is removed, you'll have a very difficult time finding a job in the Bay Area. It's so competitive down there that they're looking for people who have clean records. So I implore the board, please remove my probation so I can try to find a job as soon as I can in the Bay Area. Please.
I have no other questions.
Thank you. Does the board have questions for Mr. Soklas? Start on my left.
Sure. It's actually not a question, but congratulations on turning your life around. I do want to point out that there's a couple errors in the application or the petition, which is probably you just didn't understand the question, which some people don't. It's questions 14 and 15 on the petition. Says, are you now on probation or parole for any criminal or administrative violations in this state or any other state? And you answered no, and obviously you're on probation. The other one is number 15, have you ever had disciplinary action taken against your pharmacist license in this state or any other state? You answered no, and of course you have.
I apologize.
I just want to point it out so it can be corrected, that's all. I know you didn't do it on purpose, so anyway. That's all I have to say.
Mr. Wong?
So I understand that if we remove the restriction, the 50% supervision, you still have problem finding?
Yes, I will still have problems because the supervision reduction, that will be fantastic. But even if that's the case, I still will have a very difficult time trying to find work in the Bay Area because, again, it's very competitive there. And every time I've gone and I've applied over the past 3 years, and when I go in for interviews or go in for phone interviews, they told me the same thing. We like you, you have good experience, we want to hire you, but because you're on probation, it's our policy at the store, whether it be a Rite Aid, CVS, Walgreens, Kaiser Hospital, Stanford, we do not hire pharmacists who are on probation. We want a clean record. That's the issue.
Yeah, I understand your travel time 3 hours because I traveled up here 2 hours yesterday. I mean, normally it take me 1 hour. It take me 2 hours yesterday.
Right, yes.
So when I driving home every time I see all the traffic coming up here, I say, man, I'm glad I'm working close.
Especially if there's traffic or if there's an accident on 80 or Highway 5, then it takes me literally 5 hours to get there.
Yeah,
and it's
I understand.
difficult.
Okay. Well, good luck to you.
Thank you. God bless.
Mr. Sanchez?
I also understand moving the kids to another location. It's hard for them to make new friends, and it really disrupts everything. So I commend you for keeping them there. I would hope that if this board decides to, do away with the probation, that you would bring, great honor to the pharmaceutical industry.
I will. I will.
Pharmacists and not go back to allowing a lot of these tablets and dangerous medicines out there.
That will never happen again. I will give you my word as a gentleman, as a pharmacist, as a father, that will never happen again.
And just keeping in mind that a lot of those medications that get put out in the streets may be your own children. So I ask you that if we do grant this to you, that you continue along that good path that you've shown to be doing.
Thank you.
Yes, I concur with Ricardo there. The quantities there that were allowed to destroy lives out there is overwhelming. But your presentation was very well articulated. It had great sincerity to it. So thank you for coming.
Mr. Soklas, first, thank you for coming. I know it's not easy for anyone to, be on this side of the dais, so I appreciate your presentation. I do have a question for you. You have mentioned that you no longer would want to be a pharmacist in charge, but it's my understanding that if we do grant the release of probation, you could change your mind the next day and still become a pharmacist in charge. That being said, chose to take that path, I think would be okay. But are you saying you never will go to be pharmacist in charge again, or just at this time?
At this time, I don't feel that I'm ready to be a pharmacist in charge. When I was the pharmacist in charge, it was at a small pharmacy, my pharmacy. I had no, what's the word? Unless you're working for a Walgreens or a CVS or a Stanford or a Kaiser, you have a lot of layers to it. You know what I mean? You have a lot of layers and you'll have a lot of help. At my pharmacy, I had no help. It was just me. If I were to become a PIC, I would want to be working in an environment where I have a lot of administrative help. I have a supervisor, like a pharmacy supervisor. If I did not know a certain thing or I needed some help with some things, I could ask. I had some outlets to ask. When I had my pharmacy, I had nobody to ask. And that was one of the biggest downfalls. Not only was my taking care of my wife and my children, but I really didn't have anybody to ask for any help. That was the issue.
And so what I'm hearing is correct. I don't want to put words in your mouth. That under the right conditions, you're stating that you would become a pharmacist in charge. Is that correct?
If I choose to, and the position was such, and it was a favorable position for me, maybe down the road at some time. But right now, I'm 49 years old. I really don't want the pressure or the stress that I had previously to happen to me again. I just want to be happy working as a staff pharmacist, working 9 to 5, 9 to 6, coming home to my kids and my wife and taking care of my family. If again in the future it does come up and the position is such where it's favorable to me and have a lot of outlets and a lot of help, I might do so, but not at the present time.
Thank you, and for the record, you don't look a day over 45.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, if you not become a PIC, most of the pharmacy, like you said, only one pharmacist. If you're not the PIC, who else could be a PIC?
That is true. That's why, I would like to work in a pharmacy where there is a PIC already in place. And then eventually, if I choose to do so, I can be a PIC, but not after I'm with the company for a few years to know the ins and outs of the pharmacy, to know the regulations and know the policies of the company I'm working with, because I don't want to make the same mistake twice, because I know I have only one chance, and if I do it again, I'm gone. My license is over. I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. I'm a very smart man, and I know and I've learned from my mistakes. And it's not going to happen again, ever again.
Well, I suggest you learn to learn more on the PIC, because like I said, if you are the only pharmacist in that pharmacy, you got no choice but have to be the PIC, so you better learn the trade.
Yes, sir. I when I get, hopefully, if I'm off probation, I get a job in the Bay Area, there I will learn to see what the PIC is doing and get more acclimated and ask his advice and his help. So if that does come in the future, I'll be prepared to be successful.
Hi. So, as my colleagues have also said, and we understand this is not an easy task, but I think you understand that our only goal here is the protection of the people of the state of California. We love you, we love your family, we love what you're doing, but it's the people of California that we're protecting here.
Of course.
So you do actually have other resources for the PIC. You make me a little bit worried when you say if I'll be in a big company and I can rely on the pharmacy supervisor or someone else, because at the end of the day, whether it's your own independent pharmacy or a huge corporation, you're the PIC, and if something goes wrong, you're going to be sitting there again with problems. So if you're the PIC, you call the board and ask questions. We have a phone number. We have folks available to help you, answer questions. We're not trying to trick you. We think it's very straightforward. But I just want to make sure you understand. Don't hide behind a corporation
Right.
or supervisors. When it
Right.
comes down to it, they're not the ones who are.
Oh, I
sitting there.
understand. Yeah, I know. I think when all this was going down with my pharmacy, I was just getting so evolved with my wife's health, my children's health, and everything was just on my head that I just wasn't, thinking properly. Maybe I had somebody there with me. I don't know, maybe my previous owner could have helped me, but again, I did things the wrong way. And I admit that. I didn't do things the correct way. But now that I've had 3.5 years to think about it, to contemplate, to go through probation, to go through all these things that I'm going through, I think that I'm a stronger and more educated and more well-balanced pharmacist, that if this ever happens again, and I'm in the same kind of position again, I'll know to call the Board of Pharmacy and ask for either an inspector or whatnot to ask for help. And I will definitely do that.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So we talk about your past mistakes, things you did, but if you had to say, what were the 1 or 2 mistakes? We've been talking very generically about mistakes, and we've thrown out lots of pills missing and whatever. In your mind, after you've gone through the ethics course, you're practicing on the other side of this mess. What were the 2 or 3 real mistakes that you did that you are disciplined for?
The number one mistake was that I wasn't there for my pharmacy. I know that my wife and my child had health issues, but I believe that I could have some way, somehow found the time to be there more for my pharmacy. If I was
Can I interrupt you? You had a pharmacist on duty, though.
I had a pharmacist on duty, but the pharmacist on duty after the fact did not do a very good job. Okay, but that's my responsibility as the PIC.
Right.
It's not his fault. It's my fault to clean up the mess.
Okay.
And I did not clean up the mess correctly, because whatever it was. I'm not gonna, say because if she's sick or because the baby was sick. I just didn't do a good job. That was it. I just didn't do a good job. And I realized after the fact that at the time where I really wanted to become a pharmacist and a pharmacy owner really bad, that I could be the best pharmacist there was for my community and help everybody out. But when I really got in there and I found out what I really had to do as a pharmacy owner in PIC, it's a thankless job from morning to night. And I just could not put forth the effort to do so because of, again, the wife and the child, and because I was just, I think, mentally not ready to take over as a PIC. The other owner who was there, who sold me the pharmacy, he had told me that he would be there to show me the ropes, to help me out, to get me adjusted. But he had some sort of an ailment. He wasn't able to do so. So again, I was on my own. I tried to telephone other pharmacies, other pharmacists who I knew. They were either unwilling to help me or they could not help me. But again, my fault again for not calling the Board of Pharmacy to ask for their help.
So
You see?
it sounds like it was supervision of the pharmacist there. And so
Right.
what are the couple things that you think that pharmacist did wrong that you should have caught as a PIC?
Well, I think what he did wrong was specifically when it comes to like paperwork and prescriptions and invoices and things like that, they didn't really properly file papers away, because when the inspector came in to try to check on everything was not in the C2s were not filed correctly, invoices were not filed correctly. He could not find the documentation to address the concerns of the pharmacy, the shortage of drugs, etc. If the paperwork was there, if the prescriptions were there and in order, that wouldn't have been an issue. They would have found out that everything was intact, that everything was there. paperwork and administrative policies are very important in the pharmacy. If you can't find a prescription, you cannot find an invoice, no one will believe you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You need to have that paperwork in the correct manner. I know where I work now at Feather River, I'm in charge of putting away all of the C2s every night. I put them away. I put them in order. So I know where everything is. I file paperwork away every day. So at that pharmacy, I think is one of the best pharmacies I've ever worked at because we work together as a group and everybody knows what they're supposed to do. At my pharmacy, I wasn't there. So it was a free-for-all. A technician did that, did this, did that. There was no structure there because I was not there. Had I been there, there would have been structure. But since when the rooster away, the hen will play, that's what it is basically. Nobody was there. They did whatever they want to do.
So you had really no policy and procedure for them to really understand.
Correct.
So you really don't think you lost all these tens of thousands of
I
tabs?
really cannot say that because I was not there, but I do know that a lot of the C2s, prescriptions, and a lot of the invoices that were put in the storage unit back in 2010, a lot of them was damaged. The inspector said 2009 to 2011. Well, I had put storage C2s in the storage and invoices in the storage unit. There was a sprinkler that went on and the whole room got flooded. Everything was destroyed. They had to be destroyed. So there was really nothing there from the inspector to go by. So he made the assumption. So I don't know. I was not there. I cannot say for 100% certainty that is what happened, but that could be a reason of why the shortages were there. But I don't know. Again, I
So
don't know.
since you've been to the ethics course, you've been working in your new location. I'm sure you've come upon situations where you kind of said your two kind of goals. I
Right.
mean, unfortunately, life in pharmacy tends to be kind of gray.
That's true.
So you've probably come upon one of those situations. Can you just explain a situation where you've come upon it and how you've handled it now with your new knowledge?
You see those kind of situations every day. What I've seen in that part of the town is a lot of people in that area are really uneducated. I don't want to say words, but it's very rural up there. So someone who gets a prescription filled, let's say in San Francisco or New York or LA, might be a little bit different from someone getting it filled up in Magalia or up in Paradise. You know what I mean? So unfortunately. So when I go talk to a patient, I have to gauge and consult with them. I have to gauge what level of intelligence maybe he might have. I can't go in there and tell him that the cyclone 450, blah, 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 that breaks down. Some patients want to know that. For these kind of patients, you really have to break it down. You take one tablet twice a day with meals, because if you don't, it might cause you to have a bad stomach ache. If you see you have this, please contact us or your doctor. Do it in a way that's more, folks, I don't say folksy, but more understandable. You know what I'm saying? And so that might be different from somebody who has a PhD in physics. He may want to know it in a certain way. There's a woman who's a teacher, and she wants to know how food and how it's broken down in the body chemically. She wants to know there. So I have to really gauge it differently for each patient.
I guess what I was trying to
No.
get at is with your understanding from the ethics course.
Right.
How have things changed for you now that you've taken, like in reality? Like I understand how it could in my own mind. I'm just curious
Right,
how it has changed for you.
I think that I don't take pharmacy for granted anymore. I put stock in being a pharmacist, and I take pride in following the laws and regulations every day. In the past, I see pharmacists breaking the laws every day. I do. I can't say in my previous job, I've seen it. A little one there, a little one there. But I've noticed that if I even think about breaking the law, even if it's a little bit, it's going to come back and get me at the end, one way or another. And I don't want to do that, because I know that if I do that, eventually it's going to come get me at the end. So I've prided myself to following the letter of the law 100% of the time. This way, it may be more work for me. It may be a couple things I have to do extra. It's well worth it because down the road, if the inspector comes in and wants to inspect you, your C2s, your paperwork, if everything is there and everything is perfect, you're in good shape. If there's an issue, you're in bad shape. If the insurance company wants to come in and say, well, why was this prescription stating take as directed when it comes to test strips, for example, where you must take 3 times a day. Then the insurance company can come in, they can reverse the claim on the insurance, and then we lose money. And the name of the game is 2 things: helping people and making money. That's the name of the game in pharmacy. If you don't make money, the pharmacy is going to close. So you have to be good at your job, be accurate, be quick, be smart, be prudent, don't make any mistakes, but then be able to make a good income for the company you're working for. Because if you can't do that, you're gone, one way or another. So I prided myself to be a good pharmacist, a quick pharmacist, a smart pharmacist, a pharmacist who cares about his patients, who cares about the company I work with, and who cares about the people I work with. If we do all that together, the pharmacy will be successful. If something doesn't work, it'll be a single day of my life. And that's what I'm the rest of my life until the day that I retire, until the day that I die, as not only a pharmacist, but as a person. That's more important than anything else. Be a good person. If you're a good person, you're a good pharmacist. And that's how it works.
Thank you. I
Thank you.
I appreciate your answer, and I, as my colleagues have said, appreciate. I think you have your priorities straight,
Right.
keeping your family and your faith number one, and then pursuing your profession. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Questions?
I want to thank you to be here. I know it's hard to go through all this, but I concur with all my other board members saying that if we were to grant you early terminations, we just want to make sure that you wouldn't be a threat to the public, because this is what the mandate of the board, to ensure public safety. Now, you mentioned that you don't really want to be a PIC or don't really want to own a pharmacy. I just have a different opinion. I think by learning your lesson, you should be more brave by learning this experience to go forward and take on the challenge. It's not the PIC is awful. It's not the ownership is awful. It's just that you need to learn the process of how to be a good one. So, are you a member of any professional organization right now?
No, not well. America, the CPHA.
CPHA
Yeah.
or CSHP or?
Yeah, CPHA. I am involved CPHA whenever I have a chance. When I come down to the Bay Area, I do try to go to the meetings if I can.
You're not a member yet?
I am a member.
You're a
I am,
member.
but I don't have unfortunately the time, because when I come down, I have my kids, my mom, my wife, so it's a little bit difficult to juggle all those things. If I were to come down and be in the Bay Area, I would have more time to devote not only to my church, but more time to helping the CPHA maybe grow a little bit more in the Bay Area, be more involved with the CPHA.
But I think if we were to grant you the early terminations, I hope you should go out there and help the other pharmacists too, to be ambassador of what you went through.
That's
Should
a
be
good idea.
lesson
Maybe I can tell them what I went through, so they won't have to go through the same things
Would you
in the future. Yeah,
take on
because
that in the future?
honestly, it's been torture for me.
Okay.
It's been very difficult, but
All right.
but
Thank
I've
you.
learned a lot, and I want to again thank the board for allowing me to come here today and talk about my case. I really appreciate your everything that you've helped me, and please, I implore you, if you can please terminate my probation early. It would really help me and my family a lot. Thank you.
Okay. No further question, Your Honor.
Anything further from the board? Ms. Jarvis, did you want to give a brief statement? I think you've given your statement, but if you, is there anything to add?
No, not at this time. I have nothing further to add. I would submit.
Thank you. And Ms. McAllister?
Admitted, Your Honor.
Okay. Then as of today, this matter will be submitted. The record is closed. We're off the record. prior to leaving, you can pick up a sheet from the court reporter that gives you information about how to order a transcript if you so choose. You're free to go.
And Your Honor, can we have about 5 minutes before the next petition? We have some setup to do.
Yes. The next matter we will hear is Miss Lee.
That's there. Your Honor,
Okay, we're our next petition is Miss Catherine Lee. You ready? Okay, let's go on the record. We are on the record before the Board of Pharmacy to review the petition for early termination of probation of Catherine Lee, OAH number 2017-120077. My name is Heather Rowan. I'm an administrative law judge. I've been assigned to preside over this matter. Prior to going on the record this morning, we established that there is a quorum of the Board of Pharmacy. May I take the appearance of the Attorney General, please?
Yes, good morning, Your Honor. Christina Jarvis, Deputy Attorney General.
Thank you, Ms. Jarvis. And Ms. Lee, you're present today and representing yourself. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Prior to beginning this hearing, we went over the procedure, how we will proceed. Do you have any questions?
I do not.
Okay. Ms. Jarvis, did you want to start with a statement?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Good morning to the board. I am appearing here on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Government Code Section 11522 and Business and Professions Code Section 4309. My role is solely intended to protect the public interest by ensuring that the board has adequate information from which to make a decision on this petition. Petitioner first became licensed in 2005. She took a pharmacist in charge job immediately out of pharmacy school. The inspection that uncovered the violation of laws and regulations governing pharmacy was in 2011, and by stipulated settlement and order, effective February 4th, 2015, petitioner was placed on probation for 5 years. A brief overview of the reason for discipline is that petitioner, again as the pharmacist in charge, failed to have appropriate compounding training documents or self-assessments, failed to maintain records, had a staff pharmacist change expiration dates for ingredients in compounded medications, allowed 65 patients to receive drugs that had been compounded with expired ingredients. Petitioner failed to maintain documentation so that 233 patients received drugs with no documentation as to the compounding technician or supervising pharmacist, nor what ingredients were actually in the drug. The drugs were also dispensed before completion of the end product testing for sterility. Petitioner also purchased drugs from an unlicensed source in Canada. A review of the accusation shows many causes for discipline. 20 of those causes for discipline are against the petitioner. Approximately 21 are against the pharmacy, and the rest are against another pharmacist. However, since being placed on probation, petitioner has been compliant. She has paid approximately 2/3 of the cost recovery ordered. She has completed her community service per year of probation, which is 90 hours to date. She completed the ethics course in 2016. And with the petition packet, she submitted 89 hours of continuing education certificates from April of 2015 through March of 2017. Finally, petitioner provided 4 letters of recommendation, 3 of which were able to be verified by board staff. One was from Ming Win, a PharmD, who knows petitioner from pharmacy school. Another from Sophia Tim, also a PharmD, is petitioner's pharmacy supervisor, as required by probation. One from a non-licensee, Gregory Leonard, who worked with petitioner at the pharmacy against which the accusation was filed, and one from a medical doctor, who is the medical director of one of petitioner's employers. All of the letters state that petitioner is an exemplary pharmacist, a good person, with good character and professionalism, and is hardworking and trustworthy. At this time, I would like to submit the exhibits to the packet, if I may approach the judge.
Yes.
I would identify these exhibits as Exhibit 1 being the memorandum in regards to the petitioner's probation and ask that it be submitted.
Lee, are you familiar with what has been marked Exhibit 1?
No,
Do you have the petition packet?
I do not.
Is your microphone on?
I'm not sure. Okay.
There
Yes, it
you,
is.
there you go. Was Miss Lee provided with the packet?
She was.
Okay. The Exhibit 1 is the memorandum regarding the petition for early termination.
Was this mailed
It
to
was.
us? Okay. I didn't receive it. That I understand now why Susan and I had a miscommunication, because I asked her last night. I had to send out an email last night asking her about the time in the room to meet, because I was expecting a package first, thinking that.
Can you
Okay.
speak up, please?
All right, is this better? Okay, so now I understand why Susan and I had a communication last night. I had to send out an email to Susan because I didn't find any information on the room and the time to meet. But Susan had said that she sent out a package. I was waiting for it in the email, but also I haven't received a package in the mail either. So that explains why.
Is your address 13089 Peyton Drive?
It is. And then I've received other correspondence from the board in the past, but it is a PO box, so I have to check with the manager at the store. Now that explains the confusion between me and Susan.
Okay. Miss Jarvis, will you please hand your packet to Miss Lee?
You.
Could you take a look at the first exhibit?
Okay. There were two things that Ms. Jarvis had mentioned that I want to correct, if that's possible. I did make a full payment of my fees to the board.
Okay, you'll have a chance to make a statement.
Okay. Exhibit 1. Okay, let's see. Okay, Dr. Tipton.
I'm going to ask you to speak into the microphones.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have objections to this exhibit?
I might. Dr. Tipton, I have reached out to him and asked him. I think the last communication I have with Susan was that she has not received the response from Sophia and Dr. Tipton. So apparently she received the response from Sophia. But Dr. Tipton will this factor that he didn't verify, is this an important factor that can flip the case? Because I could actually make a phone call to Dr. Tipton and have that verified with the board. I think he's just too. I'm so sorry I interrupt you, but I think he's a busy person to track down. I did leave messages for him, so I was hoping that he did call in for me, but I didn't get any follow up from Susan stating that he was still missing before I came here to this meeting. If I had known that he was the last person that hasn't been verified, then I would have been more proactive at chasing him down and do this for me.
Do you have any other objections to this document?
No.
Okay. Exhibit 1 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Then Exhibit 2 is the petition for early termination of probation submitted by petitioner with the attachments including the CE certificates and the letters of recommendation. And I would ask that that be admitted as well.
Thank you. Ms. Lee, this packet you should be familiar with. These are the documents you submitted to the board. Do you have any objections to this?
I do not.
Exhibit. Okay. I want to remind you that the court reporter is working hard to get everything down. So if
I'm going to try to project my voice.
And also try not to speak over other people when they're talking so that she can't get two voices at the same time. Okay?
Okay.
Exhibit 2 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, I would ask that Exhibit 3, the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, along with the underlying accusation in case number 4566, be admitted.
Exhibit 3 is the disciplinary history. Do you have any objections to Exhibit 3?
I do not.
Okay. Exhibit 3 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Jarvis, for passing that on. Go ahead.
Thank you. At this time, it is now petitioner's opportunity to address the board.
Okay, Ms. Lee, did you want to give a statement today?
Yes, I do. I have an opening statement,
Okay,
but
wait, I'm going to swear you in first, okay? Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
And if I could remind you to also speak slowly.
I will try.
Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. I just want to make two comments with what Ms. Jarvis had stated earlier regarding the repayment of the recovery fee. As soon as I received notice from Susan that I would be having a hearing, I paid off the remaining balance to the board. So that has been 2.5 weeks ago, and payment has already been debited from my account, so it's been paid off. Okay, and with regards to the fourth letter that the board was not able to verify with my previous supervisor, Dr. Tipton, if it is critical that I have that verified, please let me know, and let me know if I need to work with Susan to get this verification completed for the board. I would do so. I know he's a busy man. We do play phone tag a lot, but I can't track Dr. Tipton down because this is a very important matter, and he has been one of the top people that supported me through this entire ordeal.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I would like to thank you to begin my opening statement by thank you all the members of the board here today for your time to review my request for early dismissal of my probation. I'm here today because back in 2005, I accepted a position as pharmacy manager and pharmacist in charge right out of pharmacy school from with a company that provided DME and home infusion services. I reported directly to the CEO, who is not a pharmacist and did not hold a clinical license. Because the CEO wanted to grow the pharmacy division, I implemented and rolled out all the initiatives to the best of my ability. But by year 6, I was doing provider relations. I was managing the division P&L. I was working on contracts. I was negotiating contracts with health plans, doing 24-hour on-call every single night, and still the only staff pharmacist. So with the added business pressure and being stretched thin, I was unable to keep up with my duties as pharmacist in charge. So hence, a multitude of violations were discovered at the time of inspection that resulted in where I am today. Since the effective date of my probation, February 2015, I have been working extra hard to learn from this situation. Most of all, so that I could regain your trust and the trust of the public. I hope at the end of my session today, I will have the support of the members of the board and also the Office of Attorney General to grant my early dismissal, because you will see that granting me dismissal today is the same, has no risk to the public as if I were to complete my 5-year term. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jarvis, did you have questions?
Yes, Your Honor. Miss Lee, did you complete the 30 hours of training in sterile compounding required by probation condition 17 in your first year of probation?
Yes, I did.
When did you complete that?
Immediately, so within that first year. I'm sorry, are you asking because you don't have records of that?
Correct.
That's not possible. I have a record in here. Would you like to see it now or later after the session?
No, you're under oath, so I take your word that you
Okay.
did complete it within the first year.
Okay.
Okay.
But if I didn't complete it, when the board had notified me or tried to revoke my license because I was in compliance?
That's possible. But what I'm asking is when in your first year did you complete this training?
Okay.
Now you were
It's within the CEUs. It's part of the entire total CEUs completed.
okay.
Mhm.
And so this was specifically training in sterile compounding, correct?
Yes, and it was approved by the board.
My next question is, what did you learn in this training that was different from what you did prior to the training that got you into trouble?
The materials that I learned through the CEUs are actually the materials I already knew. Plus, except for new laws, new regulations, because of a lot of changes that has happened in the sterile compounding world. So a lot of these are refresher course, refreshing materials that I already knew in practice.
Have you worked as a pharmacist in a traditional pharmacy since your probation began?
That depends on what you define as traditional. I have been working since probation, but I've been working in managed care, particularly in utilization management of medical oncology. So I don't know that's traditional. I think traditional is more of hospital-based or retail-based, but this is managed care. And I think a lot of times, even today, when I talk to my peers or my colleagues, my other pharmacists, they still don't really understand what managed care is. So I would say not really traditional, but it's within the scope of practice.
Well, let me ask you, so what do you do as a pharmacist in managed care?
So the world of managed care is managing medical costs, pharmacy costs, either in medical benefit or pharmacy benefit. We are in California, which is heavily managed care. The entire managed care industry consists of industries such as health plans, medical groups. So I was employed by a medical group to oversee medical pharmacy costs for our clients, for our health plan clients. That involves various disease states such as rheumatoid arthritis, cancer, but that was my previous employment. Current employment is specifically in medical oncology.
So in this position, do you have any patient contact?
I do not.
And do you have any involvement with actual medications, filling prescriptions, reviewing prescriptions?
No, this is all research-based. So the work I do today, we provide clinical support to our oncologists. Oncologist does the medical review to either approve or deny requests for oncology services at the doctor's office. As a pharmacist, we design the program, the actual portal for our providers to use, the Q&A that they go through, and at the end of the Q&A, we give them a list of regimens to use. So in order to design that, we do a lot of research, literature research, to keep the portal updated.
And then it seems to me that several of your letters mention that you worked at Apple Care.
Mm-hmm.
That was the managed care position?
Yes, Apple Care was managed care.
And then it notes that you were let go from Apple Care.
Yes.
And that was due to your probation.
It was.
So where are you currently working? What's it called?
New Century Health. It is also managed care, but it's medical oncology managed care versus Apple Care was population management.
Could you say the name of the company again?
New Century Health.
Thank you.
I have no other questions at this time.
Thank you. Does the board have questions starting from the end? Mr. Wong?
Not right now.
Mr. Sanchez?
I just want to commend you for coming up here to talk to us. I know it can be intimidating at times, but you're presenting yourself very well, and I want to commend you on your courage.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez.
First, I also want to thank you for your time, and I do have a few questions for you. You know, I was really, taken back by your testimony today. I didn't hear anything about remorse. I made mistakes. I didn't hear anything that you learned from your past. Oh, I'm sorry. I usually have a deep voice and boom. So thank you. People usually tell me to be quiet. I didn't hear anything about, remorse. I didn't hear that you learned from your past mistakes. I saw some of the things in your file talk about changing dates on drugs, buying drugs from, other places outside the United States. And it sounds like to me you were running a practice that was solely based on profit. And nothing in your practice was based on providing the best care for the citizens of California. You haven't addressed any of that here today. Also, with your job at Apple Care, how long did you work there before you were terminated?
3 years.
3 years. And you said you were terminated because of probation, is that correct?
Correct.
And then I'm assuming when you filed your application for the position, did you check the box that you were on probation?
So allow me to explain that. But I will, with regards to.
Oh, yeah, I think I think you hit your.
Sorry. With regards to your remorse comment, I will address that because I also have exhibits and also ways that. And I also have exhibits that will address those two comments that you had earlier. But regarding to Apple Care, so when I joined Apple Care at the time, I was not on probation yet. I wasn't even aware that there was a case against me. So I had resigned from Supercare and joined Apple Care. So during that time, that around the third year into my employment at Apple Care, that's when the case arose. So when the case was finalized, I was the only pharmacist there. I was reporting to the medical director, the vice president medical director. And so at that time, the board sort of forced me to leave the job because I don't have a pharmacist there. So the medical chief officer, seeing that my performance was stellar the past 3 years in the company, he wanted to retain my employment. In doing so, he supported me in order for me to comply with the stipulation. He actually hired an additional pharmacist part-time to fulfill that requirement so that I could stay on as employment. So the chief medical officer supported me. The entire executive team supported me. But when the company was sold to United Health Group, their legal team didn't want to hear it, didn't want to hear the support even from the executive team. So that's why I was let go.
My big concern, and I just want to put this on record, it'll be my last comment. When people come before this board, we get usually, 3 types of different cases. We get, pharmacists who were taking their own product. Mm-hmm. We get pharmacists, picks, and who never run a pharmacy before and were very sloppy and just made, honest mistakes, but still a mistake. And is the reason why you're on probation. And then we get, certain individuals, and here's my biggest concern, are out for profit and not for the care of the patients. Mm-hmm. When I hear something as serious as you're changing dates, expired dates on compounding, to make a profit. I personally have an issue with that. When I hear things and reading the record that you're buying medicines and you allow that to happen in your pharmacy, I mean, from Canada, I mean, that's a moral issue, you know, and that's not an issue of an honest mistake. And so I wanted to go on the record is to let you know where my opinion is, where my thoughts are with some of the, you know, what you did as a pick.
Okay. Thank you.
Just a statement.
Oh, before we go on, I want to.
I'm done.
I want to
Thank
take
you.
my.
Can we come back to you?
No, I want to follow him because he's.
They always cut in on me.
And
It happens
Last
once a
time
year.
it was
That's-
Albert.
once a year.
No, last
And Mr. Schott, if I may, also, I have an extra copy of the petition packet to provide to petitioner as well at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody always cuts in on me. The kind of on a dovetailing with your comment, you said that in the 30 hours of sterile compounding education that you took, that you really didn't learn anything. It was just review. Is that right?
Yes. Aside from new regulations that came out.
Right.
Yes.
And so this kind of dovetails into the concern that you knew the importance of these quality assurance checks. You already knew that information. Mm-hmm. You didn't gain any new information, and you just said that you were kind of overworked. And so you were stretched then. I'd love to have you as an employee, except for that QA piece. So I kind of have concerns with that you said you did it because you were overstretched. You didn't mention that the public was put at danger because of that. And you said you took the ethics course?
I did.
And so it seems like there should be some realization that your actions led to, or statement that your actions led to the public being put at danger, which again is our primary concern here.
I absolutely agree with you. So one of the steps towards rehabilitation and the requirements that the board require was to take the ethics course from professional. The company that the board recommended, and I took that, and then I learned a lot from it. But so in addition to that, what I will share with you what I learned. But I also just recently took the leadership and ethics in organization course at Cal Poly Pomona. That's part of the MBA program that I recently started this past quarter. And that course was amazing. And I will show you one of the exhibits that I did really well in that course. So what I learned from that course is that in the beginning, when I went through this entire psychological issue, the whole case was a huge psychological impact, and I don't think anybody on the board would understand, because I'm pretty sure none of you were ever disciplined. But when you go through this process, the stress, the impact, the fear of losing your license, and your license is your identity. Your license is your bowl of rice for your family. I know I have nobody else to provide for me. So the fear was tremendous. And then so I asked myself, what happened? What the hell happened? Because my entire life, I've never been labeled as an unethical or immoral person. I have done everything right. I've raised a child since I was 18, and she graduated from college. I graduated from college when I had her at 18. I beat the social statistics, and I even went to pharmacy school. So everything I've done is right, successful. But why was this such a huge failure? So what I learned from the leadership class at Cal Poly was that individual characteristics are not the only factor in determining ethical behavior. Good characters alone does not prepare somebody for special circumstances in the business world. So when you're facing with ethical dilemmas at jobs and your professions, so you require more than just what you have values growing up in your family, your church, your temple. So all of that is part of you, but it's not enough for you to be able to avoid ethical failures in the business world. So special training through these types of courses will actually provide you the framework you need to think deeper and to think slower, to think more thoroughly on decision making, so that now I become more aware. Before, when I didn't have these courses, I wasn't aware. I was just the Catherine, just trying to do whatever I could, trying to do my job. But it took me. It was a shock when I saw my name described in these letters. It wasn't the Catherine I know. It wasn't the Catherine that people around Catherine's life know. It was awful. So through these course, so I've gained a lot of insight and skills. It's the entire quarter. We did nothing but discuss about ethical dilemmas in this course. And we write papers, we analyze, and so we learn, and I learn from that now that I have the framework of how to think when it comes to ethical issues, and apply that in the context of my profession. So to answer your comment, Mr. Brooks, I do have remorse. I do. And I spent 3-4 months crying over it. I cried and cried. But then now, what do you do after that? You rise up. You learn from your failure. You learn from your mistakes. You understand what happened that led you to the situation I am in today, so that I identify the risk factors. So now I know now the risk factors. I know to identify the risk factors. So now I think more of when you can become more ethical awareness, then you have ethical judgment, and then it leads you to ethical actions. So the awareness wasn't there before. The awareness wasn't there when you got out of school. The whole mistake that I got was, I was leading a company, how can I lead a division when I was never led? So that was a mistake. I got into a job that was too much for me, and I did what I could until everything collapsed, the catastrophe. But sometimes when I think about this case, it's more like a blessing in disguise, because nobody was harmed in this process. So my failure becomes very instructive. I see it as something instructive, that I've learned so much from this huge failure, as much as I did from my other successes. It's so the remorse is there. The impact is there. The impact changes you, your entire life. I don't think you'll understand it. It's so impactful, the nights and days when you don't sleep, but you don't get up. You're in bed.
Miss Lee, I'm going to interrupt you there because I think
okay.
that we're
getting too
straying.
passionate.
Okay,
Sorry.
we're straying from the question at hand. Did you have another question, Mr. Shad? No. Okay.
When you say so specifically and kind of dispassionately, you said you learned so much. But what were those ethical things that you learned? If you could articulate them shortly. I'm not trying to trap you or anything here. I'm just kind of interested in it.
Sure.
Because in the focus of public safety, you say no one was harmed. Well, that's a good thing, and I can understand that the expiration dates sometimes are arbitrary, so on and so forth. But nonetheless, that doesn't exempt you from making that decision that you knew wasn't correct. And so I want to make sure, from the public safety viewpoint, that you won't be forced into making those decisions again for the good of the company.
Absolutely. And, you know, I want to say that, well, I shouldn't say because then I'll be, I don't want to sound defensive and not be feeling remorse. I do take everything that had happened under my operation, my fault. But my fault is I didn't do the duties of really checking everything I needed to check as a pharmacist. So a lot of things became done incorrectly and I didn't catch those mistakes. So if you were saying, Mr. Brooks, that I one day decided to go in and change the date, that's not true. I one day called up somebody in Canada. That's not true either. So what happened, so to give you a perspective that I didn't...
Miss Lee,
Oh,
the question is, what did you learn from the ethics courses and how will you apply it going forward in your practice?
I learned techniques. So techniques to be aware of ethical overtones. So what that means is that stop and think. The very important thing is that stop and think. When you're in the business world, when you stretch out things, when you are forced to make decisions, do not make quick decisions anymore because the decisions you make affects public safety. So therefore, so what I learned and gained from this is that the awareness in my mind constantly, what is the consequences of my decision? How would that affect public safety? Because of that awareness, it becomes a second nature when you make decisions. I no longer make abrupt, quick decisions, but my decisions will be thorough, slow, and calculative, and consider many issues in. And so that's the takeaway that I got from these two courses.
Miss Field.
I go now? Yeah. So my first question actually is going to be to Miss Jarvis. Her probation started in 2015, so it has not been 3 years, and it seems like a lot of times that's our rule, is that they need to have so much time on probation before they can apply for the petition, and that we normally would consider it.
Well, you can absolutely consider the amount of time she's been on probation as a aggravating or mitigating factor. The statute says for any probation that is 3 years or more, then 2 years has to be served.
Okay, thank
So
you.
she has served the 2 years.
Thank you. And Ms. Lee, so under condition 20 is supervised practice, and there's a 75% supervised, 50%, and 25%, and that's determined by the board or its designee. What's your understanding of how much supervision you have to have in your practice?
25%.
25%?
Yes.
And did you leave Supercare? I think you called it collapse, but did you leave Supercare before or after the collapse or the?
I left after the inspection, but before I knew there was a case.
And so why did you leave at that point?
Could you say that again?
I left after the inspection, but before being aware that there was a case against me.
So after the inspection, was it because of the inspection that you left, or why did you decide to move on?
Well, I decided to move on for a long time because I was just so overwhelmed with the whole operation. But the timing it's finding a job to transition to it took time. But the thought process of leaving the environment has always been there. Been there the last year.
So it was just happenstance that you left after the inspection. You had been looking prior to the inspection for a new position?
Oh, yeah.
And there's quite a few people listed as officers of the company on the original case. Did you ever talk to them about your situation, about being overwhelmed, and in your situation?
I think the officers are the family owners, and also there was an executive team on there. They all knew. They all knew I was stretch out thin. I was doing everything on my own.
But let me say that again. Did you talk to them and tell them? And maybe they witnessed, but did they hear it from you that you were in an impossible situation?
The CEO knew and the executive team knew, but not the board. Well, let me take that back. One of the board members from the company is actually a brother that is the director of IT there, so he knew. But the other names on there, they're absent. They're not in the location.
And when you say that no one was harmed, what did you do to make sure that none of the patients had been harmed?
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
As Mr. Brooks stated that some of the dates on the prescriptions had been changed and perhaps medication came from other countries. I thought I heard you say that, or maybe it's something I read in here, that because no one was harmed, that made it
better. No.
not
It was
better,
a
but I guess,
blessing
how
for
did
me.
you? How was that statement arrived at? Is really what I'm getting at. Whether it's better or worse, how was that statement arrived that nobody was harmed?
Nobody that I was
None of the
aware
patients.
of.
None of the.
No
all
one.
Yeah, remember, and you even put it in your letter. We don't protect the licensees. We protect the people of California. And so there was a statement that none of the people of the state of California were harmed by the actions of this pharmacy. My question to you is, how do you know nobody was harmed? What steps did you take to make sure that nobody was harmed by the actions of this pharmacy?
The knowledge of knowing no one was harmed was because there was no case that came up.
So because you had no complaints, or
I had
you're
no
aware
complaints.
of nobody had
Yeah.
called up and said, I have a problem.
But I'm not trying to say that because no one was harmed, my case was any better. That was my
Yeah,
intention.
no, my question was just really if you did any kind of research, or how did you know nobody was
Yeah.
harmed? So someone
No.
could have been harmed. We just never heard about it.
Yeah.
And as a PIC, you consider yourself fully responsible for all the causes of this case.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank
That's my
you.
question.
Do you have any questions?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you for coming here today. And I do have some questions for you. Now, looking at some of the allegations and violations that you had in your case, besides the sterile compounding, there are a lot of other things that are something that seems like even common sense to all of people. Like you have overstaff of technicians. 9 people were there when no pharmacist was present. There were people with a lot of keys entry to the pharmacy. PIC, no assessments form, and technicians, they were allowed to do sterile compounding without no supervision. You are correctly right. Yeah, you're lucky that no one was harmed, or maybe somebody was harmed that we are not aware of. But these are the things that, not just such in class, you could have learned that just by being as a pharmacist, not even a PIC. So I want to know, so what have you learned just because you're under stress in a situation? Now you're going to be going into managed care, a new situation. There could be risk factors now, and into some areas that you don't know. What if there is something that people are doing illegally right there at the managed care you are aware of? What would you do now differently than before?
I think I'm a much stronger person today, going through this entire ordeal. So I think my voice would be much stronger to speak out. If I identify or aware of certain ethical dilemmas or ethical overtones, I would actually raise the issue. Raising the issue to HR, raising the issue to other upper management team. So instead of before where it was the Catherine, let's try to Let's try to bear my own workload. But now it's like, wait a minute. Let's take a step back. Let's evaluate the situation. What would be the harm, the consequences if this decision is made? And I think those type of thought process and decision making that I've gained will actually prevent any other ethical dilemmas in the future, regardless what setting I'm in. Home infusion, which I don't plan to come back, managed care, retail, or even hospital. And it's not only that technique also takes you out of your professional realm, but also into your personal life, what the decisions you make, as a mom, as a caregiver. It's just beyond, it's more than just the use in the professional realm.
And so if your upper management ignore your concerns, what would you do at that time in your managed care settings?
Whistleblower. That's the one thing that we learn, that if I happen to work for a multi-million-dollar company and there's ethical dilemmas, there's protection out there, and if you truly believe that these are violations, then you speak up because you are protected under the laws for whistleblowing.
Well, you could speak to them, and if they still ignore your concerns, what would you do?
If they are not, you got to speak up. If you got to report it.
You can speak up to them, and they still ignore you. What would you do?
You speak up to the people above them. You make the people above them aware. Sometimes you make everybody aware in the company. You become the whistleblower. You tell authorities. You tell governing boards.
That's what the point I'm trying to get at. You should consult the board to see if there's violations in there before you proceed. Okay. And another thing I want to ask you. You have seen the other petitioner that they have served over 3 years in the probation before they come in front of the board and ask for early termination. So tell me one good reason why we should grant you the early termination when you have only served 2 years.
Well, by February, I will have served 3 years. But I'm here today asking, even for being before 3 years, is because the opportunity is available. I mean, I met the requirement that allowed me to petition, so I'm going to take, jump at that opportunity and ask for it. And two, the pharmacy landscape is changing every single day. So, I had a perfect, you've heard before, I had a perfect situation at AppleCare, but AppleCare was acquired by United Healthcare, and I lost my job because I was on probation. My current employer is actually owned by a private equity company, and you guys know what that means. It will be sold. Private equity is the same thing. You invest, you sell in a short term. So I want to be able to, get out of probation so that I could further secure my job. And that's why I'm securing my job. But also, I'm asking because giving me probation, giving me full reinstatement today would not pose any higher risk for if I were to complete my entire 5-year term. So I guess on your perspective, giving me full reinstatement today, would I be a higher risk than waiting it out for 5 years? And the answer would be no. I have full understanding and of everything I've learned of what happened. So there's no risk there.
Okay. No further question, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Yeah, how does on your current job, how's the probation affected your function in the company? But why would they have problem with you being on probation?
They don't have a problem with me in probation. They hired me while I was on probation. Through my interview process, I had to share with them my probationary status. They read through the case, they questioned me. I went through 4 levels of interviews from the pharmacist to the CMO to the vice president of HR questioning the case. But at the end, after listening to me, they were able to offer me the job. So the probation does not put me at risk right now with the current employer. But what happens is that the current employer is owned by a private equity company. I just don't want to lose my job again when the company continues to be absorbed by larger entities, and it's happening every day. You see CVS is buying out Aetna today, and so that's one of the reasons.
I have one more question,
Yes.
if I could partake. When I kind of flipped through your CE, because one of the conditions was 30 hours specifically around sterile compounding. Without sitting there adding up with my calculator or whatever, it does appear that you probably did about 30 hours on topics with the word sterile compounding within there. But I think it's interesting the way you chose to address that. I'm hoping maybe you can help me understand. It was a lot of the kind of online classes.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like there was one that you went to Western that was 6 hours. But other than that, they were very short little snippet classes. And understanding that, I totally understand your point of view that I didn't really learn that much more. It was just kind of more of a refresher, because I do find those little 2-hour online classes kind of more refresher kind of classes. Nothing really deep. So I'm just curious, after you've had this, huge thing happen in your life, and you described, 4 months of depression, and you called it a collapse. And I don't want this to come off flippant, but it seems like the way you approach CE, you did it the easiest, least the way that you would. You didn't really dive into the problem and say, let me try to solve this and really get smart about this. You did it the easiest way possible. You met the condition.
Mm-hmm.
So, I have to give you that.
Okay.
But it just doesn't seem like you took it very seriously.
Okay. And thank you. So my response to that is that you're right. I did do the minimum in CEUs, but I spent my effort in ethics, because the way I see my case, my failure here, is not my lack of understanding of the details that has to be done. Oh, you have to maintain standards of operations procedures. You have to sign this. You have to maintain training procedures. That's not the reason why I'm here. The reason why I'm here is the whole ethical awareness. So that's why I focus on that. So and one of the other reason why I decided to do the CEU is because I'm not in the sterile compounding world. If I'm still practicing sterile compounding, I would totally agree. I would take the $2,000 course certification from APHA. That is what somebody needs if they want to venture into sterile compounding. But I'm not. So I would do the requirement, but then focus my effort in ethics, because ethics is more valuable. Ethics I take with me in every situation that I would practice from now on. Not the details of standard SOPs and signing materials. That wasn't important to me. And I do agree with you. If I end up going into sterile compounding, but you all see that I'm not in that direction anymore. I'm working on my MBA towards doing health economics, analyzing data, medical oncology. So I'm moving towards that arena. So doing that and not apply, if I were to take 100 courses of CEU but not applying it, then it's not useful. I have to learn things that I apply every single day. So that was my strategy. So I didn't minimize it. I didn't think it was less important. Strategically, I think it was more beneficial for me for growth to learn and focus on ethics.
Thank you for your answer.
And if I may address that point as well, we did do a review of the CEs while Ms. Lee was speaking, and she did meet the 30 hours within the first year. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Lee, you have other evidence to present today?
I do.
Thank you. Excuse me.
I have 4 exhibits to present today to the board. So the first 2 exhibits are video testimonials from 2 patients that that came from the program that I created. So going back, so let me give you the background. So one of the requirements of the settlement was for me to provide to do community service. So when I started the community, when I start my probation period and think about, okay, so I put in some effort thinking, what should I do with my community service efforts? I didn't want to just go anywhere and volunteer at a center or at a church or anything. I wanted to be more effective. So what I did was I went to the city of Diamond Bar, and I created a program, a blood pressure screening program for the senior citizens of the city, and that provided blood pressure screening not only to the seniors in the city but also the surrounding cities as well. So you have Walnut, you have seniors from Roland Heights, and I'm sorry, I shouldn't do that. You're not from the area. It's just neighboring cities. So at first I did this, and to complete my minimum requirement, but the program was so successful. The seniors kept asking me to come back, so I decided to keep it open throughout the year. And so I've been keeping it open until recently when I lost a job at AppleCare. I had to go when I transitioned over to my new employment. I really didn't have the ability to ask them for special consideration for me to miss hours in the morning so that I continue this program. So I stopped the program for a while until I gained enough brownie points at New Century Health so that I can ask for special accommodation so that I can continue the program. So I want to show you 2 testimonials of seniors, citizens from the program so you can see how successful the program was.
Okay, I believe that we're going to step down the board, step down and around so that we can all see the video. And I want to remind the board that if you have any comments or questions, not to ask them when you don't have a microphone in front of you.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Teacher Lee, I am very, very happy with Katharina because I'm member of the Diamond Bar Senior Center and I find the paper. So really, really help. Number one, I have low blood pressure. Then a couple of weeks already, I have very high pressure. I am also diabetic patient, and so teeth is a very problem. And medicine, so many medicine. I don't know which one decide good or doctor says so. But I'm curiously, doctor don't have enough time for experience. So she explained to me, and the paperwork, I don't understand 100% English, and she extra helped me. I'm very, very appreciate, okay. This program, and I met yesterday another lady, and she's too, she don't trust doctor, but she trusts her because the pharmacist tell the truth. So that's why we are coming. Hopefully continue your program, that continue, okay? Thank you, Catherine. Thank you for everybody. Thank you.
This is testimonial number 2.
Hello, my name is Emilio Melendez, and I come here quite often to have my blood pressure checked with Kathleen, and she's a very helpful person, has a lot of information on different medications, and kind of calms everybody down. I've noticed when they come in with problems and that, she talks to them, and she kind of helps them through the day and probably through their lives and their way of thinking and the way of doing things. Very helpful person, and I wish she would continue this because this is very helpful for senior citizens that really have problems getting to a doctor to get their blood pressure taken, and also the information that she has to give them.
Thank you.
Miss Lee, do you have the names of those two?
The 2 seniors.
Yes.
First is Jasmine. She goes by Jasmine. And the second is Emilio Melendez. Okay. Can I proceed with exhibit number 3?
I want to ask if Ms. Jarvis has objections to the 2 video testimonies.
I do not.
Okay. Then I will. It's difficult to admit evidence that I don't have. I'm just trying to think of how to proceed. I think that the best thing to do would be to admit the testimony as stated. It was in the record. It's part of the transcript. And you couldn't take them down? Okay. I will make a note that the board heard the testimony, and but it's not physically in evidence. I'm not quite sure how else we would take it in.
I think that's the best.
Okay. Now, yes, you may go to your third exhibit.
My third exhibit is to show you my grade that I recently got last week as my final grade for the Leadership and Ethics in Organization course I took at Cal Poly. It was weighted total 100%. I think 675 out of 685 was my final grade. That was 98%. So just wanted to show it to you that I got a lot out of the class.
Any objections to this exhibit?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Exhibit. I'm going to mark this as Exhibit C, and it is admitted.
Okay, and the last exhibit. So I found this piece of this paper while I was going through my files, and this was my examination result when I had interviewed with LA County for a supervisor position. If you look at the date, that sort of falls into the before the incident, the inspection. So it's another opportunity for you to see that I was trying to get out of the situation. This was the examination was taken before the inspection. So I wanted to show it to you, and you can accept or reject it or not. But the test was intensive. It thoroughly tested judgment and how to make difficult decisions. And I was hoping that Dr. Gutierrez was here because she's actually the head of the LA County DHS, and she would know the type of questions that they have on the exams. And you can see that I scored top tier, just below the veterans. The person that actually interviewed me and graded me and gave me this grade was actually Dr. Gutierrez herself. And I also found the business card that she gave me, and also the name of the director of pharmacy that co-interviewed me with her. It was Sandy Melnick. So I just wanted to show this, just to give you another indicator that I do make good decisions and judgment overall. And it was just compromised because of a lot of risk factors that I wasn't aware of, that I'm aware of today. And that's it.
Thank you. Do you have objections to Exhibit D?
I don't have an objection. I do have a note that this date is prior to the accusation being filed, but it was not prior to the inspection itself, I believe.
The interview date was prior, but it took them several months. County takes a long time. So it took them a long time to finally give me the results. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Exhibit D is admitted. Did you have anything further, Ms. Lee?
I don't. Maybe I have a closing statement. That's it.
If you have a brief closing statement, that's fine. Just one moment. Did you want to add anything?
I do, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
During this process, I did receive information from Ms. Capello here, a staff member of the Board of Pharmacy, which indicates that the petition packet was delivered on December 5th at 9:48 a.m. So it should have been received by you, unless you did not check your mail for a week.
I do. Okay. I have to see what happened here. We do check our mailbox, but sometimes it may not fit in the mailbox, and they hold it. The PO box office may have held it and didn't give it to us, and so.
Okay,
thank you.
That's enough. I don't. I appreciate the comment, and I appreciate that you have not yet picked up the item. Is there anything further?
Just one final thought for the board to consider when they're contemplating this case. There was a statement that no patients were injured, and while we don't, as was pointed out by board members, we don't necessarily know that that's true. We haven't received any complaints, but again, 233 patients received drugs that do not have any records as to what's in them, who compounded them, or who reviewed them. 2 patients received medications that one was 10 months expired already, One was 11 months expired at the time that it was given to the patient. There was a failure to have expiration dates on labels of medications that were given to patients. So patients may still have these medications with no expiration dates and no idea that they have expired. So I do want the board to keep that in mind when they're contemplating this petition. Thank you.
You've given your testimony, so if you have a brief statement to make, that's fine.
I do. Okay. No. So with regards to what the deputy attorney had mentioned from this case, again, I do take full responsibility for all the infractions that had occurred under my supervision. Those infractions are the reason why I am on probation today. But my accomplishments since then should be the reasons why you should grant me early dismissal. The board had laid out all the list of things I needed to accomplish as part of my rehabilitation. I've done above and beyond those requirements. And you saw that I built a program for the seniors at the city of Diamond Bar and neighboring cities. The testimonials show that they value the work that I've done and that they trusted me. So in that essence, I've regained the trust of the public in that respect. So I also made sure that I understood all the factors that landed me in the situation that I am in today, and that I'm fully aware of those risk factors, any risk factors that would come to prevent myself from being in this situation again. So the decisions-making process I have today, through this entire ordeal and the courses that I took, are much more thorough, more carefully thought out because of this situation. And so I think, again, I know I said it before, so this failure is actually something very instructive. And I've learned as much as I did in this failure as I have with my successes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. This matter is submitted as of today. The record is closed. We're off the record.
Thank you.
Before you leave, please make sure to pick up a billing sheet from the court reporter that gives you information about how to order a transcript if you so choose. The next petition we will hear is Mr. Orozco. Thank you. Mr. Orozco? Before we go on the record, I want to give you the same instructions that you may have already heard this morning, that we need to make sure that we can hear you and the court reporter can hear you, and so that she can get everything down, we need to speak one person at a time, okay? Okay. Let's go on the record. We're on the record before the Board of Pharmacy to review the petition for early termination of probation of Randall Orozco, OAH number 2017-120080. My name is Heather Rowan. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings. I've been assigned to preside over this matter. Prior to going on the record today, we established that there's a quorum of the Board of Pharmacy. May I take the appearance of the Attorney General, please.
Yes, good afternoon, Your Honor. Christina Jarvis, Deputy Attorney General.
Thank you. And Mr. Orozco, you are present and representing yourself today, is that correct?
That's correct.
Before we went on the record today, I explained the procedure for the hearing in this matter. Do you have any questions before we begin?
No.
Okay. Ms. Jarvis.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I am appearing here on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Government Code Section 11522 and Business and Professions Code Section 4309. My role is intended to protect the public interest by ensuring that the Board has adequate information from which to make a decision on this petition. Petitioner first became licensed in 1997. He was caught taking drugs from the pharmacy where he worked in August of 2011, and by stipulated settlement and order, effective October 25th, 2013, petitioner's license was placed on probation for 5 years. The reason for the discipline is already clear. Petitioner stole, possessed, self-administered, and then worked as a pharmacist while under the influence of drugs. He stole approximately 6,000 tablets of Caresperdal, which I probably mispronounced and I apologize, 7,700 tablets of Tramadol, and 258 tablets of acetaminophen with codeine. Petitioner admitted all of the causes for discipline. Petitioner has been compliant with probation. He has paid 100% of the $4,795 he was ordered in cost recovery. He enrolled in and completed the Pharmacist Recovery Program. He is compliant with his community service hours, and he completed the ethics course in 2015. Petitioner submitted 76 hours of continuing education certificates from January of 2015 through January of 2017. Petitioner also provided 9 letters of recommendation, all of which were able to be verified. 3 letters were from licensed pharmacists, all of whom had first-hand experience with petitioner as a pharmacist. One of these letters was from the regional director from the pharmacy against which petitioner committed his thefts, who states that petitioner has taken numerous efforts to return to the upstanding pharmacist he was before the thefts. Another letter is from the managing director of a pharmacy, who states that they were very happy with petitioner's work as a temporary pharmacist, and if it had not been for his disciplinary history, they would have considered offering him a permanent position at the pharmacy. Petitioner's wife wrote a letter. A friend of 30 years also wrote a letter stating that petitioner has coached several children's sports teams and is a man of conviction and character. And finally, petitioner provided a letter from his sponsor in AA, who states that petitioner is doing exceedingly well and has worked the 12 steps. At this time, I would like to submit the exhibits to the petition, if I may approach.
Yep.
The first exhibit is the Memorandum of Probation. I would like that to be admitted as Exhibit 1.
Mr. Orozco, have you had a chance to look at the documents?
Yes, I have.
Do you have any objections to Exhibit 1 being admitted?
No.
Exhibit 1 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Exhibit 2 is the petition for early termination of probation with the attachments including the CEs and the letters of recommendation, and I would ask that that be admitted.
These would be the documents you submitted to the board. Any objections?
No.
Exhibit 2 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Exhibit 3 is the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order along with the underlying accusation in case number 4379, and I would ask that that be admitted as Exhibit 3.
Any objections to Exhibit 3?
No.
Okay, Exhibit 3 is admitted.
This is now petitioner's opportunity to address the board.
Thank you. Mr. Orozco, did you want to make a statement this morning?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to swear you in first. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Whenever you're ready, sir.
Okay. I would just first like to address the handouts that were passed out and explain what they are. The top copy is it's a receipt of a donation I made to Teen Challenge of Southern California, which is a rehab and recovery center for those suffering from addiction. The amount is $695, and that amount represents the monetary retribution to Far America. I attempted or inquired about making that payment to Far America, but they stated that it had been such an elapsed time that they wouldn't know what to do with it. And so in discussing with them, I decided he said maybe you might want to consider making a contribution to a charity of your choice, and that's what I chose. The second page represents an offer for a job dated August 8, 2017. And then immediately after that, on August 24, 2017, represents the denial of employment based on a background investigation which showed a restricted license. And that just speaks to part of the reasoning of my submission for petition. And then the last three documents are just some more hours of community service, just to add to the total on page 2 of Exhibit 1, which shows 187 hours. So plus this 16 will be equal to 203.
Mr. Everson, I'm going to split these up and label the donation receipt as A. Do you have any objections?
No.
Exhibit A is admitted. B would be the next 2 pages, the job offer and rescission. Any objections?
No.
B is admitted. And then the last group of pages, volunteer hours, Exhibit C. Any objections?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Exhibit C is admitted. Go ahead, Mr. Roscoe.
Okay, I first and foremost want to thank you because I know that it's obvious that you all familiarize yourselves with the cases, and I know that takes a lot of time, and I'm just very appreciative that you are all well familiar with my case. So thank you for giving me this time. Regardless, for myself personally, of the outcome here today, I would like to take this opportunity to apologize to you, members of the Board of Pharmacy. In many cases, my words had become meaningless, and amends that I've needed to make have needed to be in a different form. But in this case, I still think some words are appropriate to all of you. Each of you works extremely hard to represent this profession, holding it to the highest standards and ensuring public safety. I cannot imagine a bigger black eye on it than someone like me doing what I've done, taking advantage of my license and my position. I stole drugs from the place I was employed and administered them to myself to feed an addiction. I not only endangered myself, but also friends, family, co-workers, and the public that I am supposed to serve. As the Board of Pharmacy, each and every one of you is affected by my actions. You've likely found yourself at one time or another having to defend this most trusted profession after the actions of one bad apple. If nothing else, becoming familiar with my case takes time and maybe caused you to put off other things you could have been doing. In 1997, this board placed its trust in me. You granted me a license to safely and effectively engage in the practice of pharmacy, and I betrayed that trust, and for this, I am truly sorry. I am an alcoholic and a drug addict. There's no question about that. I have a sobriety date of 8/19/2011. My petition contains documentation of programs completed, courses taken, letters of support, and I have 6 years worth of weekly urine drug screens, all negative. These documents speak for themselves, but there is more to me than what you see on paper. It is my hope that you can put together those with the person you see and hear today and find an individual who is once again trustworthy of being granted a clear and unrestricted license to practice pharmacy. Like everyone in recovery, I do have a story. I won't get into many specifics because I don't think many of those specifics are appropriate here. I don't think anyone sets out to become an addict or alcoholic. Never in my pharmacy career was the goal to try and throw everything I had worked so hard for away by stealing and self-administering drugs. As we say in our meetings, drugs and alcohol are but a symptom of a bigger problem. For me, I believed I had this disease at a very young age, I just didn't know it. As a kid, I learned to cope. I learned how to shove things deep down inside, hoping and believing that the things I didn't want to deal with or know how to deal with just went away. I was fearful a lot, afraid to speak up, afraid to ask questions, afraid to say I don't know, and afraid to say I can't. As a result, I became an adult who didn't know how to speak up. I didn't know how to say what I was thinking, didn't know how to express what I was feeling, and I didn't know how to ask for help. When you're an adult, the same coping mechanisms simply don't work. As a father, a husband, or a pharmacist, when life's difficulties came up, I couldn't simply go to my room, hide, keep quiet, and hope things would turn out okay. Drugs became my way to cope with these situations and issues, and allowed me to be seen, yet hide at the same time. I'm not thankful for my addiction, but I am thankful for my recovery and the process I've been through. My addiction has been treated in a variety of ways: a 90-day inpatient stay at Hazelden, a year of aftercare, health support group, 12-step meetings, personal therapy, marriage counseling, church, and lastly, but definitely not least, work with my sponsor in the 12 steps. Through it all, I've been able to recover, but more importantly, I've been able to discover who I really am. Today, I'm able to ask for what I need, say what I'm thinking, and express how I'm feeling. I no longer feel a need to hide or shove things down in hopes that they go away. If fear creeps up, I do my best to replace it with faith. When my accusations were filed in November of 2012, I was scared and not exactly sure how to handle or proceed with things. I was very thankful for the explanations of the processes and procedures that were given to me by the Attorney General's office. I had plenty of time to reflect on where I had been, where I was, and where I wanted to go. I was already enrolled in Maximus and sober for about a year and a half. I was learning to live a life of recovery and acceptance. Part of that was dealing with my accusations through a stipulated settlement and accepting whatever discipline was handed down. I felt like if I had hired an attorney, it would be like saying I needed to fight for less of a penalty. I didn't want that to be the case. I do realize that by being here today and asking for early termination, it's contradictory. I would like to state that I am at peace in my personal life today. I have and I will continue to accept things that are not in my control, including the decision in this case. At the time of submission of my petition, I was working as a temporary employee for a PBM through RX Relief. The company was familiar with my situation, as I had previously been an employee there. They kept me on for 8 months, and in August of this year encouraged me to apply for a permanent position. I was offered a job, but unfortunately, as a result of a background check, the offer was rescinded. Not only was the full-time offer no longer valid, but my temporary employee status was terminated effective immediately. I have since found another job. I was fortunate enough after a couple of months of unemployment to get hired with a company who was willing to work with my restrictions. I am currently commuting 100 miles each day to work in a pharmacy in a rural health clinic and dispensing medications from prescriptions written by the clinic providers. I am extremely grateful for this opportunity and to be able to be of service to the residents of this small community. I do, however, still have hopes of utilizing more of my clinical knowledge in a different setting, with goals of becoming certified in one of the recognized pharmacy specialties. My hope is that if my petition is approved, my employability will be enhanced and I can begin to work on that goal. When I first got sober, my oldest daughter was 11 years old. When my probation started, she was 13. I can remember telling myself that rather than look forward to the day I'd be finished in 2018, I needed to focus on each day, one day at a time. If I kept my focus on 2018, I'd miss out on everything going on with my children right in front of me. Time sure has flown by, but I feel like I've done a pretty good job of living in the moment. Today, my daughter is a senior in high school. She's at the top of her class. And will be graduating in the spring. I would love nothing more than to be able to go with her and my wife to visit potential colleges, all the while keeping the focus on her rather than when and where I might have to drug test along the way. Being granted early termination would allow that to happen. In closing, I'd just like to again say thank you for allowing me to be here, for your time and for your attention. It truly is a privilege to sit before you today, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Orozco. Ms. Jarvis, do you have questions?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Now, you stated in your petition that the first time you actually took a drug from the pharmacy was in 2008, and you quickly became addicted. Is that correct?
No. What I stated was that in 2008 was the first time that I had taken drugs from the pharmacy. I wasn't immediately hooked on pills, but more to my detriment was the realization of how easy it was for me to take them and put them in my pocket.
So prior to taking the drugs from the pharmacy in 2008, did you have any addiction issues with pills?
Not with pills.
Okay. But you did have addiction issues with alcohol?
Yes, I did.
Prior to 2008, had you ever tried to recover from the alcoholism?
No.
Okay. After 2008, when you started taking pills from the pharmacy, you had said that you tried several times to stop.
Correct.
Did you ever actually do a sobriety plan, try to do AA, anything like that before you got caught?
I went to an inpatient residential treatment facility, a small house in Fresno.
When was that?
That was in 2011, February 2011. It was more at the urging of my wife, and I honestly only spent 2 weeks there, and my heart wasn't in it.
So that was about, 6 months or so before you got caught?
Correct.
Okay. What were your triggers to take the drugs?
To be able to hide, to be able to not think about things, not deal with things.
Well, that's your reasoning, but what were your triggers? Like, what would happen that you would think, I need to take this drug? Do you understand what I mean by triggers?
Yes, I do. Stress, thoughts of previous incidences. I would say mostly those two.
And how do you handle those triggers now?
Today, as kind of stated in my statement, I say what I'm feeling. I ask for things that I need. I express how I'm feeling, and the people that I do that with the most are my wife and my sponsor.
Now, you've never filed a petition for modification or early termination before this, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So why are you coming in now? I see you've already served 4 years. You're almost done, really.
Yes. At the time of submission, I did not have full-time employment. Much like the other two petitioners, I experienced extreme difficulty in getting a job because of the restricted license.
And I guess my question really is, why not before now? Why not after 2 years or 3 years?
I wanted to complete the Maximus Diversion Program, which is 5 years.
And you actually entered the Maximus Diversion Program prior to being placed on probation, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So have you now completed it?
Yes, I was complete in March of 2016.
I have no other questions at this time.
I'm sorry, could you say that? March of which year?
2016.
Thank you. Did you want to add something?
I do. My support here would like to give a statement.
Yeah, let's do your witness statements before the board's questioning. So, do you want to bring your first
yes,
person
I would
up?
like to call my wife, Dana Orozco.
Come on up here. I'm sure you have heard me say this morning, but if you could speak into the microphone so everybody can hear. And prior to your statement, I'm going to swear you in. Will you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. I'm not sure if your microphone's on.
It is.
Okay, could you just maybe
Maybe
put it up a little
closer.
bit?
Sorry. Is that better?
That is, thank
Okay.
you.
My name is Dana Orozco. I've known Randy for 26 years, and we've been married for the last 19 of those years. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you today. This request for early termination of Randy's probation is not about making our lives easier. It is about his ability to safely serve the public. Randy's descent into addiction and his subsequent recovery are his stories to tell. My point of view, as his wife, speaks to the differences I witness daily between living with an addict and living with a person in active recovery. Secrecy and its resulting shame, avoidance, and excuses were present in our lives prior to Randy's treatment in his 90-day program at Hazelden. Once he returned home, he began planning the necessary steps to meet the requirements laid out both by the Pharmacists Recovery Program and by this board. As we began therapy, both individually and as a couple, I could tell that Randy's motivations changed from cover up faults to be transparent. Instead of pretending life's difficulties never happened or did not affect him, Randy sought help in overcoming those difficulties. His communication with our children and me became more open and honest. While meeting the stipulations of his probation was obviously important, Randy's main focus turned to his own mental and spiritual health. This is evident in several ways. First, he sought out a sponsor and began to really do the difficult step work necessary for lasting recovery. Not only has he continued to attend AA meetings regularly, he currently serves as secretary of a weekly meeting. The Randy in recovery that I live with today admits his mistakes quickly and seeks forgiveness instead of avoiding or passing blame. I'm proud of the man I married because I consider him to be a person of spiritual growth and integrity, and for these reasons I believe him to be worthy of your trust in serving the public.
Thank you, Mr. Roscoe. Ms. Jarvis, do you have any questions of Mr. Roscoe?
I do not.
Okay. Thank you. You may step down, ma'am. Do you have any other witnesses?
Yes, I do. Mr. Jim Graydanis.
I'm sorry, what's that?
The board members didn't have a chance to ask any questions.
Oh, I'm sorry. Most boards say they don't want to ask questions of witnesses. Does anyone have questions for Mr. Roscoe?
Just commend her for coming up here and speaking up. That takes a lot of courage, and just wanted to point that out. You have a
Thank
great
you.
partner there.
Anything further from the board? Okay, thank you. Did you have anyone else who wanted to speak today?
Yes, Mr. Jim Graydanis.
Do you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And could I ask you to get close to the microphone when you speak? And before you begin, will you please say and spell your name for the record?
James Graydanis.
Can you get a little closer? I'm sorry, not me. Can you get a little closer to the microphone?
James Graydanis. Greydanus.
Is it Graydamus?
Graydanis or Graydanis,
N. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, thank you, Your Honor, and members of the board. I don't have, I have no idea what I'm going to say. Randy asked me to talk a little about myself. Excuse me, it's, bear with me. Our dog was deaf and she went blind the last couple days, and she kept me up last night. Got up at 4, but at least we're here. I'm a 40-year member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I have 41 years sobriety in March. I've never had a slip. I've worked with other alcoholics for starting in 1981. A fellow asked me to sponsor him and take him through the steps. I was his sponsor for 29 years. Of course, we became friends. And that somebody in a meeting recognized my pain I was in from alcohol, stepped up and offered to help me. And I accepted the help, turned my life around. And today I have a quiet mind and peace in my life. Was able to hold a good job. I retired from the electric company after 36 years. Next month I'll be married 49 years. My wife should be made some kind of a saint. But at least I'm able, she had a heart attack last year, and at least I'm able to take care of her now. And I'm really, really glad I can do those things in sobriety. Sobriety and allows you to do whatever you need to do and be free and happy. So ever since then, I've been working with people. I've never not had somebody I've been working with, because that's what really helped me. It's the program is a 12-step program. It sounds maybe simplistic, but it's not. About 6 years ago, and Randy had been in an AA meeting that I go to on Friday nights. I go to 3 of them a week because 2 of the guys I sponsor are secretaries, so I support them now. And now that I'm retired, I can do a little bit more. When I was working and raising a family, coaching swimming, I only went to 1 meeting a week, but now I can do a little more. So about 6 years ago, and I knew who Randy was. He knew my sons in high school. He was coming to meetings, and I was kind of wondering where he was at. And then one day he approached me and he said, "Jim, I think it's time I get a sponsor and go through the steps." And I said, "I'd be glad to help you." So we began to meet. We met at Carl's Jr. like 6 in the morning on Saturdays, and I started taking him through the book. I'm very basic. I know what got me well, and so I stay very basic. And with the book, if a person has time, I take them through the book, and the steps become obvious as you go through that. It's a process. And so we, the first one is we turn our lives over to the care of God. We don't preach religion, just let everybody come to terms with that themselves. But then on the step where the 4th step is, we made a fearless and thorough moral inventory of ourselves. And that's not easy. A person has to be really willing to humble themselves to do that. And on the next step is confess to God, to another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. We spend a lot of time on that step. It's a deflationary process. It's a humbling process, and there are very few people. Somebody asked me one day, he said, "You've been here 40 years, how many people have you taken through the steps?" I said, 20, that actually gone through with me. Not very many. A lot of people that come in and they die. I've seen them die. go insane. But it takes somebody to break and be willing to go through this process. But once we do, then we're pretty safe. I could say I have almost 41 years. I've never had drinking hasn't even entered my mind. It was taken away by this process. So, the confession of our faults and the humbling of our pride, that's what gets us into real life. And there's some things that we all need to take care of in our past, and we make amends. And Randy has gone through this process. I'm very proud of him. I have a son that looks kind of like him. I wish he was my son. I just love Randy and his wife. And they have a really good family. And I told Randy when we started, I said, look, Randy, you've got 3 things going for you already. I said, you go to church, you've got a good wife, and you've got a good job you've got an education. I said, let's take care of things and keep that going. So I don't mean to ramble on. That's about all I have, but I thank you for hearing me. And I wasn't sure whether I should share in depth like that, but the lady to my right, she talked about AA, so that kind of set me free. And then what Randy said, because I was wondering what to share, because it's rather in-depth program we go through. So thank you for hearing me, and bless you all.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Jarvis, do you have any questions?
Yeah, just a couple, Your Honor. I'm going to show you a letter. This is the handwritten letter in the petition packet. It should be the last page or 2. Did you write this letter?
Yes, I did.
And everything that you wrote in it is accurate and truthful?
This is a program of rigorous honesty.
Absolutely. And so you wrote that letter in support of Mr. Orozco. And that's why you're here today. That's it.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions?
No questions.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You've achieved quite a bit since you started your probation, and you can be proud of that. You should be proud of it. I know you are. And it seems like you have an excellent support system, so that I would imagine that the public would be quite safe with you back in your job.
Thank you.
Sir, you may step down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Jarvis, do you have any further questions for Mr. Orozco?
I do not. Thank you.
Does the board have questions for Mr. Orozco? Mr. Wong? Mr. Sanchez?
I have a question, or not a question, just first of all, just commend him for coming up here and presentation. They say that circumstances don't make a man, they reveal him. You've taken the right steps to better your life. 4 years of probation, we understand it's almost over, but you've done what you needed to do, or at least in my view, to better yourself. And that's commendable. I would hope that everything that you've endured, your family, great, your wife supporting you, that you will further your profession in the pharmaceutical board. And if you are granted the having the probation taken away, continue the path that you've started and you're continuing to do. I wish you luck, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do have a comment. Well, what you've been taking in the past, Tylenol codeine, is very small compared to what's happening today. And nowadays we have a big problem in our country. So I hope with your knowledge, with your background, that you could go out and try to educate other people so they will not get to the same pathway you did. Thank you.
Thank you.
I commend you choosing Hazelton. That's quite a commitment financially, and it's supposed to be a great program. And so to embrace the best is the way to go. And did RX Relief hire you with knowledge of your?
Yes, full knowledge.
Well, that's commendable of them.
I have no questions, and once again, thank you for coming. We know how tough it is. I do wish you luck in the future. I would probably stay away from Carl's Jr. Heart disease and other things, issues that could come up. But thank you for your time, your testimony, and I'm sure you're gonna go home and hug your wife because you're a very lucky man.
I am.
Ms. Field?
Yeah. Well, as my colleagues, and if you've ever been to board meetings, I always have questions, so roll with me, okay? First off, congratulations on your sobriety date. August 19, 2011. Have you had any slip-ups?
No.
Excellent. Stress is a trigger, and I'm not sure I really heard how you deal with stress now. I know it sounds like you put yourself in less stressful situations, but unless you found a way just to avoid it, which I would love to hear, what do you do when you're faced with a stressful situation today?
If I can start a little bit before that, I feel like I've pulled myself out of a hole, and stress is part of that hole. So I do the things to stay far away from that hole as possible, beginning with a morning meditation, and make sure I start the day with a clear head at least. If I happen to get closer to that hole, I take a step back. I can do a simple breathing technique or walk around, walk away. If things get overbearing, which they haven't, I can definitely make a phone call to either one of them or a number of people. And I try to just practice service. Stress a lot of times is me making it about me and how a situation affects me. But if I approach it as what I'm doing is helping somebody else, it kind of changes my thought process a little bit and helps relieve the stress.
How long did it take you to successfully make it through the 12 steps?
Well, the 12 steps are never completed because there's always maintenance steps. But I'd say at least a year to get through meat and potatoes to get to the maintenance.
And you said earlier that as you got clean and sober that you discovered who you are. You like that guy?
I do.
Like that guy better than the old guy?
Much better.
And the last question, I'm really hoping you can. Oh, actually, I have two questions left. What do you say to your kids about addiction and alcoholism?
What
What do you say to your kids about addiction and alcoholism?
I share my story. Let them know that it's real. Let them know that education is one part, but they're going to have a choice to make one day. I try to. They see it in other family members. They see it firsthand from me, so they know that there is a genetic component. But I don't give them gory details, but I tell them my experience. And someday they're going to have to make their own decisions, but they understand that. They know that it's real.
Okay. And I guess the only thing I have left, and maybe this is actually directed at your wife, she says that you now admit mistakes, and I would love to know how I could get my husband to do the same. He's
Wait
not,
in line, that's what my wife tells me.
But anyway, congratulations. Thank you for coming. I think you've done a fantastic rehab and turnaround of your life.
Well, I agree with all my fellow board members. to congratulate you for what you had gone through. But bear in mind that there are a lot of pharmacy students and even pharmacists that might have the same problem like you had before. So if we were to grant you the early terminations, would you have the courage enough to go back to your pharmacy school and talk to the fellow students so they wouldn't have to go through what you have to?
Yes, I could do that. Part of the only issue I might have is that it's kind of like making an amends every time I share, and I have to be careful because it exposes certain people when I do that, and they didn't ask for it, so I just have to be careful of when and where and to who I share with. But I am open and honest with what happened to me, and if it can help somebody else, I am open to that.
Yeah, I think the main thing is to how to deal with the stress problem that they had based on your own personal experience. Okay, and thank you. No further question, Your Honor.
Thank you. Just one more time, anything further from the board? Ms. Jarvis?
Just one comment for the board's consideration, which is that I have no concerns with this individual being released from probation early. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we close, did you have anything you wanted to add, Mr. Orozco?
Just thank you for your time.
Thank you. Then as of today, this matter will be submitted. The record is closed and we're off the record. Before you step away today, if you could pick up the billing sheet from the court reporter, it gives you information regarding how to order a transcript if you decide to do so. And thank you, Ms. Jarvis, for your presentations today.
Okay, so now we should take a 5 minutes break before we go into closed session for deliberations. Again, the public is excused. Thank you.
And if I could, Mr. Vice President, I would recommend that you let the public know that even though we will go back into open session after the closed session, that you'll adjourn without returning to the video, so that we will go back into open session, but there'll be no further action items, and that the webcast will not reflect the adjournment, even though that will occur in open session.
Well said. Thank you.